Hey YouTube, this is Nashtaters. Welcome back to another episode of War of Divisions. For me, generally speaking, Tuesdays are pretty much the worst days for making content. There's not a lot going on. People are probably involved in mid-event, but in this case is end of the event. So I really want to give a finals impressions on the Final Fantasy Tactics event, but there are tons of new things that I want to talk about today. Well, actually, I don't want to say tons, but at least one important thing I want to talk about today. So let's go ahead and find out what it is. Before we get to the topic at hand, let me get to what I normally do on my farming routine. In my last video, I mentioned that every single day I want to do and show you guys what I normally do. And today's Tuesday, so what that means is, besides my normal routine of all the farmings that I've done, I look at, generally speaking, what the 2x drops are. Obviously, this is an event that's going on. Normally, this would not be happening. I will simply do EX chamber, I will do the gill, I will do the growth egg, and I will do the pot chamber. And sometimes I actually ignore the gill chamber. Reason being is, if I'm going hardcore on Saturday or Sunday, then I'll probably just go ahead and ignore it on the normal days to save that energy for something else like farming for a specific recipe or whatever. The next thing I like to do is I want to look at what the 2x drops are for the elk crests. This is very important because this will determine how fast you level up your units. Jobs is something a lot of people either avoid in terms of working hard on, or simply they just don't have a lot of time to do a lot of farming for those specific things. Again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the games are giving us way too much content in terms of events. But personally, what I like to do is I like to look at the units that I'm working on currently. So today's going to be fire and wind. Personally, I have a fire unit I know I need to work on, which is obviously Delita. As you can see, I've already worked hard enough over the last couple of weeks to build materials to get his 2 jobs done, Squire and Soldier. I will ultimately likely finish Paladin today. And what I other do is I'll just go ahead and click on my wind units and see what else I need to work on. Obviously, I have Ayaka, and obviously, as you can see here, I will need a few today to get that finished. And then in terms of Sasha, I will definitely need a little bit more to get her finished as well. And last but not least, I have Lucia. Right now, I usually tend to work on the way of if she's approaching pink, then I'll start working on her. But if she's not, I don't bother spending the energy to do so at that time. But when you're farming for red and or pink elk crests, you will also be getting the yellow/gold ones. So those are all going to be going and funneling into Lucia's stash. Now let's get to the real news. Great news for everyone, folks. As many of you guys know, I'm a humongous advocate for the SR units, the MR units, and the rare units. And the lower rarity units I feel like are just as powerful in terms of conquering certain events. In fact, I made Sasha because I really felt like I needed a piercing unit. And I didn't have Victoria, and I wasn't planning on waiting too long for the other unit to come out like Glaciala. But the fact that they released Kane and Rosa, and they're probably going to be a long ways out. So I decided to build her. And she was very useful for me in terms of the deep dungeon. And of course, I'll be using her in many encounters in the future. Now let's get to the actual news. The actual news is this. Right now, Japan is going to be releasing brand new content in which you will no longer be using Rainbow Fragment of Thought for your lower rarity units. There will be new rocks released for each subsequent rarity. So the MRs are going to get their own, SRs are going to get their own, etc, etc. So what that means is the rainbows will be only used for the UR units. Something the entire community on Global have been advocating for a very long time. So I think there's something we need to all rejoice. This can give us 2 insights into how this game is going. One, the developers are in fact listening to us. I think that's a great sign. Anytime when a company is listening to the input from their customers, it's going to be a good tell that the company is going to do really well in terms of putting out better products in the future. 2. This also indicates the formula that most companies, when they release brand new gacha games, tend to be a little bit harsher in giving items to the player base. And as we've seen over time, the player base have been getting more and more free items, more and more compensation in terms of something going wrong, and overall, the quality of life has improved drastically. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's good to be generous when they know that the product is working. And it's good to know that it's not going in the opposite direction like some other games, which shall not be mentioned on this video, that they're getting stingy and stingier. But War of the Visions has always been one of those games that they know that it's a very long, grindy game. And that giving us free items all the time is actually great for morale for the player base to keep on playing. Now obviously, this has been recently announced on the JP server. So when it's going to come to global, I'm not sure. But if history is any indication, the global server has been receiving updates a lot faster than the Japanese counterparts in terms of timeline. I venture to say perhaps by Christmas, that would be a nice Christmas gift. But if they decide to give it to it before that, say Thanksgiving, I'm not going to complain. My suggestion is keep doing what you're doing, and perhaps in the back of your mind, start thinking about perhaps saving your rainbow fragments of thoughts and not work on any SRs, MRs, and or rarity ones. Personally, this is giving me a big boost in faith in building more reviews of units that are not of UR quality. The reason I stopped recently is because I know a lot of people on it at this point are not really interested in thinking about MR units and SR units because of that very block, right? The fragments of thoughts are a big block. And now that that's going to be removed potentially, I think it's time to open up the floodgates and really dive into the MR units, the SR units, the rare units, and of course, the lone normal unit. Alright, now for the next topic at hand is my final impressions of Final Fantasy Tactics Part 2 Collaboration. I love Final Fantasy Tactics, and I haven't said that enough. I'm going to say it again. I love Final Fantasy Tactics. It gives me total control of what I do. If I decide to build a unit with low faith and high physical damage, even though they're a magic caster, I can do that. And no one can tell me that I'm wrong, because Final Fantasy Tactics at the time of release did that for us. We could do whatever we wanted, and that's what made it so amazing. And the great art, the so-so story, and of course the overall combat feel, really what made me fall in love. They try to replicate that in War of the Visions, and I think they did a solid job in it. Giving us nostalgia by playing the older music from the original game was really a nice touch. And I think Orlando, Ramza, Delita are all going to be in the hearts of many fans. And now they're going to live on in War of the Visions. Personally, I hope they bring in more collaboration involving Final Fantasy Tactics IP. And I really hope they bring in more units. I know a couple of my friends in this game already asked for Ygref. And me, I really want Alma. And I also want the Islu sister, because I just love the way they're designed. Hopefully they're going to bring us all of that in the future. And I do know for a fact that many folks actually have emailed Square. And they've responded, believe it or not, that they are taking all the considerations that the fans are blowing up their emails with their own personal wants and needs. This is a great sign. Given the fact that Gumi and Square are listening to the community, also shows that they're going to potentially bring us more content that the fans truly want. If they're going to be giving us units that nobody wants, then clearly they're not listening to us. But we all know they are listening to us. And for that, I'm very grateful to the two companies. Now let's do a quick insight of the units that I'm actually working on since the last improvement video. Orlando, as you can see, finally hit Limit Break 5. And I can't wait to finish him off because he's been sitting here staring at me at level 89 for a very long time. Even though at 89 he did his job very well, I did notice that there was a big drop in terms of damage. So now I think this is going to improve his damage, his HP, and all his other stats. And I think at least I finally have a peace of mind that he's going to be finished. Delita is getting closer and closer to being finished. As you can see, it takes a long time to really improve the efficiency. So overall, I feel like the Final Fantasy Tactics Part 2 was a huge success. The deep dungeon crawl was the very first time I actually decided to spend gems to reset. Did I regret not resetting in the porcelain tower? Yeah, a little bit, because I'd end up not maximizing my crimson sword. But many of you guys know I'm not a min-maxer anymore in this game. I never was. I've been min-maxing my entire life, and I feel like this is one time where I don't want to min-max. And I have no regrets. But going in the future, if I feel like I really love the event, I will do a 100% dedication to it. Next couple of weeks are not going to be events that I really enjoy, so therefore I'll do definitely coverage, but perhaps I wouldn't go as hard on a personal level. I think that's all the time I have for this video. In summary, I love Final Fantasy Tactics. I think I already mentioned that multiple times, and I hope you guys do as well. This game is really good, and this game is going in the right direction. Hopefully they'll bring us more meaningful and joyful events such as the FFT one. But if they don't, I'm okay with it too, because sometimes it's going to be hard to release content that can satisfy everyone. Until next time, make sure you spend your time wisely, because it is your most valuable resource. Take care of yourself and all your loved ones. Nashtaters and his dogs and family out. Peace.